It went on like that for weeks. He'd sneak up behind me, kick the back of my chair, hide things where I couldn't reach them, anything to make me feel helpless. The worst part was that no one else seemed to notice. My family laughed it off, saying it was just Hector being Hector. The worst of it happened when I was cleaning my house. I was busy and wasn't really paying attention, and suddenly Hector was behind me giggling like a fool. With one strong push, he tipped me out of my chair and dumped me onto the floor. "Hector, what the hell is wrong with you?" Hi, my name is Tony, and the day my life changed started just like any other. The road stretched out before me, my motorcycle humming underneath me. I loved the freedom of it, the wind, the open sky. I felt untouchable, until I wasn't. The crash was brutal. I remember the bike skidding, the feeling of my body slamming against the asphalt, and then, nothing. When I woke up, the doctor's face was there, delivering the news I didn't want to hear. My spine was broken. I'd never walk again. I would spend the rest of my life confined to a wheelchair. The first few weeks back home were surreal. Everything felt like it was wrapped in a fog, like I was watching my life from a distance. I kept waiting for the nightmare to end, but it never did. And then Hector came along and made it worse. Hector was my brother-in-law. He'd always been a jokester, the kind of guy who thought nothing was off limits. I'd never particularly liked him, but I tolerated him. I was married to his sister after all. But after the accident, he became relentless. The first time he came over, I was sitting in the living room, still trying to come to terms with my new reality. Hector walked in with his usual swagger, a smug grin on his face. "Hey Tony, look at you, man. Finally found a way to slow you down, huh?" "Yeah, I guess so." I tried to smile and take his words at face value, but something about his tone felt off. He sounded like he was enjoying seeing me in a wheelchair. I reached out and went to shake his hand, and as he grabbed my hand, he pulled me forward suddenly, nearly making me spill out of my chair. "Careful there. Wouldn't want you to take another spill." I clenched my fists, but I let it go. He was family, after all. Maybe he didn't know how to deal with the situation, I told myself. Maybe he was just awkward. But then the prank started. One afternoon, I was in the backyard trying to enjoy the sun. Hector showed up, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Hey, I'm sure my sister baths you like a child sometimes. You're disabled, and you're just a burden to her. Just divorce her and set her free." "What are you talking about?" "Oh, nothing. Just that it'd be hard to do things yourself." He grinned, and before I could react, he flicked a switch under my chair and disabled the motor. I was stuck. I tried to reach for the controls, but he'd locked the wheels somehow. "Hector, what the hell?" "Ha! Chill, Tony. I'm just messing with you. You'll figure it out." He just walked away and went inside. It took me nearly an hour to get the chair working again. My hands were raw from trying to force the wheels, and by the time I finally made it back inside, I was shaking with rage. But Hector was gone, off to wherever he disappeared to, leaving me fuming in the empty house. The next time he came over, it was the same story. He snuck up behind me while I was in the kitchen, tying the wheels of my chair to the legs of the table. When I tried to roll back, I almost tipped over. "Jesus, Hector, are you trying to kill me?" "Hey, don't be so sensitive. It's just a joke. Besides, it's not like you would have broken your back or anything. I mean, you already did that, which is how you ended up a cripple to begin with. Ha ha." "It's not funny. Why are you being such a jerk?" It went on like that for weeks. He'd sneak up behind me, kick the back of my chair, hide things where I couldn't reach them, anything to make me feel helpless. The worst part was that no one else seemed to notice. My family laughed it off, saying it was just Hector being Hector. The worst of it happened when I was cleaning my house. I was busy and wasn't really paying attention, and suddenly Hector was behind me giggling like a fool. With one strong push, he tipped me out of my chair and dumped me onto the floor. "Hector, what the hell is wrong with you?" "I just came by because I thought maybe your chair needed a tune-up and oil change. Don't worry, I'll take into the shop for you. Later, buddy." And then he left. I crawled over to the phone and managed to call my wife and ask her to get her insane brother to give me my chair back. She apologized and swore that she would, but I was stuck on the floor for hours until she finally showed up with it. Hector had taken it to the dump and was about to leave it there when she called and demanded that he hand it over to her. I was amazed that she wasn't more upset with him. Instead, she just shrugged and said that it was a prank that went a bit too far. That was it. I was done. I'd spent too long feeling sorry for myself, too long letting Hector walk all over me. I decided it was time for payback. I started small. I'd let him think he was getting to me, playing along with his stupid pranks, pretending to be annoyed. But all the while, I was planning something big. I knew Hector's routine. He'd come over on Saturdays. He'd lounge in Dad's old recliner, acting like he owned the place. So, one Saturday, I was ready. I'd rigged the chair so that when he sat down, it would collapse. Nothing too serious, just enough to knock him on his ass. Sure enough, he came in, grabbed a beer, and plopped down in the chair.
Hey Tony, you ever get bored just sitting around all day? Maybe you should get up and go for a walk once in a while. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, shut up, you jackass!
Geez, I didn't think that sliding across the pavement from your accident would leave you with such thin skin. What the?
He tumbled to the ground and spilled beer all over himself as he did.
Did you do this, Tony?
Guess it just wasn't strong enough for you, Hector. Maybe you should lay off those donuts that you love to eat so much. He glared at me, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. For once, he was the one caught off guard. But that was just the beginning. The next time he came over, I made sure his beer was extra warm, sitting out in the sun for a few hours before I handed it to him. He made a face, spitting it out, and I couldn't help but laugh. Something wrong with your drink?
Real funny, Tony. Real mature.
Guess you're not the only jokester in the family. For weeks, I kept up the act. I'd hide his keys, move his things around, anything to throw him off balance. And he was getting angrier, more frustrated with each prank. He'd show up, edgy and tense, his eyes darting around like he was waiting for the next trap. One day, he finally snapped. He cornered me in the living room, his face flushed with anger.
All right, Tony, I've had enough. You think you're so clever, huh? Think you're some kind of tough guy now?
What's the matter, Hector? Can't take a little payback?
You think this is funny? You think you can mess with me?
I think you had it coming. I'm sick of your crap, Hector. You've been riding me ever since the accident, acting like I'm some kind of joke. But I'm done. You don't get to push me around anymore.
Oh yeah? Is that a fact?
You're damn straight it is. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. His face was twisted with rage, his body tense. But then he stopped, his eyes narrowing as he looked down at me.
You think you're some kind of hero now? You're still just a cripple, Tony. You're never going to be anything more than that.
The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt my face flush with anger, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe I am, but at least I'm not a coward who needs to bully someone to feel tough. He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could, I reached down and hit the control on my chair, rolling forward so fast that I knocked him off balance. He stumbled back, falling onto the floor with a thud. Get out. I'm done with you, Hector. You're not welcome here anymore. It was then that he got up and stormed towards me with his fists raised. At the last second, I hit reverse on my wheelchair, and as he swung for me, he missed and caught off balance. He stumbled forward and fell with a sickening thud as his head hit my wooden coffee table. I felt so annoyed with him until I noticed that he wasn't getting up. He was out cold. I immediately called for an ambulance, and they took him away. A few days later, I got a call from my wife, giving me grief about goading Hector, and that it was my fault that he got injured. I of course didn't feel any remorse, especially not after the crap he had been putting me through since my own accident. But to keep the peace in the family, I told her that I would leave him alone from now on, so long as he did the same to me. I had to stifle a laugh, though, when she told me that his injuries were extremely severe and that he had lost some feeling and use of his legs. Apparently his neck was injured in such a way that it damaged the nerves there, and he would need the assistance of a cane to walk for the rest of his life. It wasn't as severe as what I had experienced, but it felt like karma had paid him a visit. When his girlfriend heard of his current situation, she broke up with him. And now he struggles to take care of himself and go to work. Maybe I should feel bad about what happened, but honestly, I just feel like it was just desserts. What do you think?